Let's go. Blockchain Crypto Gang, formerly known as Crypt Talk Podcast. About to kick some crypto slang to y'all live from the Brave browser. So make sure you guys like, subscribe. Make sure you pay attention. This is for those who are wise enough to take heed to understand what's going on and how you could benefit from this. Why this information is being suppressed on the mainstream, because it is. And why blockchain and crypto is seen as a threat. But also, what the main story we're going to get into is what is the halving, for people that may be new to crypto or don't, you may have heard the term that Bitcoin halving, but you don't really understand what that means. In layman's terms, it just means Bitcoin is going to become more scarce. Less Bitcoin will be created. So you would expect that if the demand doesn't diminish, that, common sense and supply and demand dictates that the price will continue to go up. And that's what we have seen. So let's get to this real quick. Let's just look at the market real quick. All right. So we have the market cap. The total market cap of crypto right now is about 1.5 trillion, 1.48. We could just say like 1.5 trillion is the current market cap. And Bitcoin currently holds 52% of that at 770 billion. And it's creeping up to 40,000 right now. You see Ethereum's at over 2,100. Tether's a stable coin, BNB. We got XRP, Solana's in the top 10, Cardano's in the top 10, Dogecoin's in the top 10, Chainlink's close, Polygon, Litecoin, Shiba Inu sitting at 5 billion, which is actually way down from its all-time high, but that's not really going to be the point of this. But what I'm showing you here is pretty much everything's in the green, and everything is probably going to continue to pump. Especially if you understand like how the market cycle happens to trend after the halving. But let's first get into what the halving is, and then we'll get into a couple other stories. So what is the Bitcoin halving, and how Bitcoin supply is limited? In brief, the Bitcoin halving is an event where mining rewards are cut in half. The event takes place approximately every 4 years, according to the rules set in the Bitcoin code. So every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin doled out to cryptocurrency miners halves in a process imaginatively known as Bitcoin halving. Here's how and why it works, or here's why and how it works. So Bitcoin's limited supply. To understand the Bitcoin halving, we must first understand the theory behind its supply. The inventor of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, believed that scarcity could create value where there was none before. After all, there's only one Mona Lisa, only so many Picassos, a limited supply of gold on earth. Bitcoin was revolutionary in that it could, for the first time, make a digital product scarce. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in this. Most people think about 6 million has been lost. So really in circulation, there may only be closer to 15 million Bitcoin available. So the idea of limiting Bitcoin supply stands in marked opposition of how fiat currency such as the US dollar works. So let's understand what this means. Okay. There's only a certain amount of Bitcoin. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. Think about that. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. That's it. There'll be no more. By contrast, fiat currency, there's trillions of dollars in circulation, mostly digital. So we continue to so if you want to understand why Bitcoin is worth 40,000 right now and why cost of living keeps going up, it's simple. It's because there's more money being introduced. There's more dollars being printed out. We've seen what happened with the stimulus packages and all that. There's more dollars being printed out of money that's not backed by anything. That's just issued by government, promise. So you keep flooding the zone with dollars just being printed out of thin air. So because we're oversaturating the market, every time we print more money, it means goods and services go up by default. Bitcoin only has a limited supply. So because it's scarce, because there's only a certain amount and there could be no more, and the amount that is produced gets cut in half every 4 years, that just means simple supply and demand. If the demand doesn't get cut in half, by default, the price goes up. And then if we're printing more money, there's more money versus Bitcoin. Therefore, the one that's more scarce and still in demand. The dollar bill is in less demand now than it was a couple years ago. You have countries that are saying we don't even want to use a dollar bill for the US dollar for the reserve currency now. You got BRICS creating what they're creating. You got other countries now saying we're going to take Bitcoin as legal tender. We're going digital. We're going to create our own central bank digital currencies. We want to depeg from the dollar. So the global demand of the dollar is going down. The supply is going up. So that's why cost of living is also going up. Bitcoin, by contrast, the demand is getting greater and greater. I mean, you just had Michael Saylor of MicroStrategies buy another 16,000 Bitcoin. 16,000 Bitcoin aren't even created a day. So there's more institution, there's more retail interest, there's more countries making it legal tender and mining it and buying it. There's more financial institutions buying it. You have 12 different companies applying for Bitcoin ETFs, meaning that they're going to have to buy Bitcoin in order to issue those ETFs. So the demand of Bitcoin is going up, but the supply is going down. So this is why Bitcoin is worth 40,000. If there was 21 billion Bitcoin would only be worth about $40. If there was 21 trillion Bitcoin would be less than a cent. So that's basically how it works. The scarcity is what makes, amongst other things, what makes Bitcoin valuable. So let's see where we're at. Fiat currencies initially were created with firm rules to create $1 the U.S. government needed to have a reserve a certain amount of gold. I spoke about this before on my last channel before it got taken down. The gold standard. So the gold standard changed in 1971. So up until 1971, we had a scarce amount of dollars. That's why our dollar was so powerful. That's why, you'd have mortgage that would be like $50 because our dollar was scarce. And for every dollar that circulated, there was the equivalent of gold in a treasury or in reserves. So our money was backed by gold. So if we had $50 billion worth of gold in the treasury, we could only have $50 billion circulating to make sure that we're backed. That's why the dollar was worth so much and so valuable. After they took the gold standard off, it made our money less valuable. And then when we printed more of our now unbacked dollar, then the prices started to skyrocket. And that's why now, gas will be $5 a gallon. But back then it might have been a penny, a nickel. It's not that it's more expensive to refine gas. It's not. It's just that the dollar's worth less. So over time, these rules eroded as modernizing economies during bouts of extreme financial uncertainty like the Great Depression and World War II printed more money to help stimulate struggling economies. Didn't we just go through this? 2008, 2009, 2019, 20. We just went through this again, right? Printing more money. So printing more money introduces more money into the economy, and it also reduces the value of that money, hence why cost of living goes up. So over time, these rules evolved into today's system in which governments can, broadly speaking, print money whenever they'd like. See, Bitcoin was created so that you can't do that. Understanding that if you could do that, it wouldn't be a good store of value. You would lose purchasing power. So, it's kind of like the Shiba Inu effect. Shiba Inu has 1,000 trillion Shiba Inu coins. 1,000 trillion. Think about that. They have so much Shiba Inu that now people talk in terms of we need to burn. We need to burn 100 billion. We need to burn millions. You have to burn like now their strategy is to burn tokens in order to increase the value. So in other words, they know that they overprinted, they overminted coins. They've introduced too many damn shit coins to the point to where now the only way they could really see themselves making money off of this is by burning coins. That means that they know that they've created too much. So this is kind of what we're also seeing in many countries around the globe, especially the United States. There's too much money being printed. That's not backed by anything. You just print money out of thin air, it's not as useful. That's why some countries have like 50% inflation, 100% inflation. Their money, it could cost literally a few $1 million to buy a burger in some countries because their money is just so worthless. It's not backed by anything, and they're overprinting it. So anyway, Satoshi Nakamoto believed that this devaluation of fiat money could have disastrous effects, and so with code prevented any single party from being able to create more Bitcoin. And actually, Bitcoin was created in response to the 2008 economic crisis. So what is the Bitcoin halving? Embedded in the Bitcoin code is a hard cap of 21 million coins. New Bitcoin is released through mining as block rewards. Miners do the work of maintaining and securing the Bitcoin ledger and are rewarded for newly minted Bitcoin. However, every 4 years, the reward for mining is cut in half. So in other words, what that means is every 20 minutes when a block is complete, there's a reward. Right now, I think that reward is what, 6.25 Bitcoin. So pretty much 6.24 Bitcoin is created and entered into the system every 20 minutes or so. Well, in April, that is going to be reduced to 3.12 and a half. It's going to be cut in half. So less Bitcoin will be entering. So, and this all stops in about 100 years from now, when all the Bitcoin is mined. But as of now, the Bitcoin that enters the market is about 6.25 Bitcoin every 20 minutes or so, roughly. But in April, that's going to be cut in half. So what it means is less Bitcoin is entering the market. This is done on purpose to keep Bitcoin increasing in price, to keep it scarce. So if the amount of Bitcoin entering the market is cut in half, but the demand isn't, that means Bitcoin becomes more valuable. But the demand is going to increase significantly. Remember, we're only at a place in time where only about 2%, give or take maybe 0.25%, only about 2% of the globe holds any amount of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Think about that. That means there's 98% of the global population don't hold Bitcoin or any other cryptos for various reasons. But that is going to increase. You'd only expect that to increase. But the amount of Bitcoin is decreasing. So that alone lets you know why people are saying there's going to be a day where we'll see $1 million Bitcoin. So, and then it's just not just the Bitcoin. It's like, these, and it's not just the retailers. It's actually the companies, the financial institutions, large corporations, governments are now tapping into this at a rate faster than ever before. So the first million Bitcoin were minted by Satoshi Nakamoto, 2009. And since then, over 93% of the total supply has been minted. So in other words, like right now, of the 21 million, there's 18.5 million of them that's already been out. That's already out. And here's the rewards right here. So the first, when it first started, Bitcoin mining rewards, you get 50 Bitcoin per block, which is distributed amongst the miners. So it went from 50 Bitcoin per block being produced to 25 in 2012 to 12.5 in 2016. The last one that we've seen where where Bitcoin ran up to 70,000 is when the halving dropped it from 12.5 to 6 0.25, 6.25, where we're at right now. And in April, Bitcoin will be real, it'll be cut in half again. And then the last one will be in the year 2140. So if a person, group, or government is trusted to set up the money supply, they must also be trusted not to mess with it. This is what is so special about the halving. Bitcoin is supposed to be decentralized and trustless, no one in control and no one to trust. Since Bitcoin is not controlled by any one person or group, where are we at? There must be strict rules about how much Bitcoin is created and how it's released. By writing a total supply and halving event into Bitcoin code, the monetary system of Bitcoin is essentially set in stone and practically impossible to change. This hard cap means Bitcoin is a kind of hard money like gold, the supply of which is practically impossible to change. I have this I got a video that's going to come out in a few hours, but in it, I told a story of how when I was speaking to my Fidelity advisor about trying to move my 401k to Bitcoin, he was like, "Why you want Bitcoin? Bitcoin's so volatile." Blah, 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 blah. If I would have said gold, he would have been like, "Very wise choice, sir." And I get it, because that's historically been the store of value. That has been for thousands of years what we would call hard money, gold. But now when you look at the performance of gold, just this year alone, let's say you put $1 into Bitcoin and $1 into gold January 1st, 2023, this year. Right now, you'd be sitting at $2 of Bitcoin, over $2 at this point. And you'd be sitting at, well, you wouldn't have doubled in gold. You probably would have. Let's just see how much has gold went up this year. Let's do it. How much has gold increased in 2023? What kind of percentage we got here? There we go. Let me see. Here's just summarize. Let's look at it. According to this, as early as the gold price was around 19. Let me see. So, okay, the price of gold has increased 14% from November to February of earlier this year. That's not really what I wanted to see. Okay, so the 6%. It's increased 6%. Okay. So you would have about $1.06 versus over $2 of Bitcoin. And if you take the number back from 14 years, how much gold has increased? If you would have put $1 into gold 14 years ago, you would have about $2, a little bit less than $2 right now. But if you would have put $1 into Bitcoin 14 years ago, you'd have over 30 million. So, it's just what we're doing now. Gold actually isn't really as scarce as we once thought it was, because we have more sophisticated ways of finding and mining gold and refining gold. And they're even talking about gold on asteroids. And when they learn how to tap into that, gold is going to be worthless, because it's going to be so not scarce. It was more scarce in ancient times, and when the technology didn't allow us to take it out the ground at the rate we can now. I love gold, but gold's just not, it's not appreciating in value like it once was, and like Bitcoin is. And it's also not as divisible. It's not as portable. It's not as liquid. It's not spendable. Like, you can't think of places. Where can you buy gold? You can't go to your grocery store and use gold. You can essentially use Bitcoin, even though you may have to do things like sell it on your Cash App or your Coinbase, but you could do it instantly. Or you may have to get a credit, one of the prepaid credit cards that you could spend, or a Coinbase card where you could actually spend your Bitcoin using your Visa. Anyway, so what happens to Bitcoin miners? We're not going to get into that, but the point is, as you can see, the Bitcoin halving is a big deal, because it's literally the amount of Bitcoin introduced into the market being cut in half. This is why after a halving, you typically see within 6 months, maybe a year tops, you'll see a new all-time high. And think about the last all-time high being during the pandemic. If we weren't in a global pandemic and shutdown, we probably would have seen Bitcoin hit 150,000. And that's what many people are expecting it to hit this time. I'm expecting it to hit about 110 to 115, easy, conservatively. Just because there's so much more demand versus the supply, even now. So imagine when it gets cut in half. Imagine all these people tapping in, all these different ways that people are going to be introduced to Bitcoin. And of course, Bitcoin goes up, it's going to carry the rest of the market. Another reason why, because, not only do we see the increase of demand for Bitcoin, but we're also seeing the decrease in trust in traditional financial institutions like banks. So we've already had the 3 biggest bank collapse in history happen this year. 3. We've seen banks collapse. I think 7 banks collapsed. 3 of them were probably the biggest we've seen in history. Collapse. We've seen, if you follow my last channel that now is no longer in existence, but I showed stories of banks closing branches to opt to more digital means to cut down on their operating costs, their overhead, their capital, cut down on, operating costs. They didn't make sense. So let's close down these branches. And, people have digital means. You're seeing banks now create digital currencies, JP Morgan Chase being one of them, creating digital currencies for retailers. JP Morgan already had it for institutionals. But so you're seeing banks now gravitate and adopt blockchain, close down branches. Some of them are just shut. Some of them are just collapsing. And then we see a story like this. JP Morgan Chase accused of terminating $200,000 account without warning, forcing customer to fly 2,400 miles for support. I don't know why. I have no problem with them for the past 20 years. This is somebody that was a customer for 20 years. But okay, it's their choice and nothing I can do. Although Chase has ATMs in Hawaii, does not have a physical branch. So he's banking with Chase, no AT. There is ATMs in Hawaii, but there's no physical branches. So he had to fly all the way to Los Angeles. Look at this. He opened his account 2 decades ago and was shocked to learn his $200,000 was suddenly inaccessible. Now, this can happen to any bank. Any bank could terminate your account with or without notice. They could, even if they don't terminate, they can restrict your access. This could happen. Or banks also get hacked, and where your information could be compromised and whatever. Now, they may insure a certain amount, but then you have to go through the rigmarole of, the FDIC, blah, 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 blah. But, these are the kind of things that we're seeing. Now, imagine, we only know about this because he made such a big stink about it that it got to some type of media, the Daily Hodl. Not mainstream media is not telling you this. So imagine how many other people that maybe they didn't have 200,000. Maybe they didn't have the means to make a big enough noise about it for it to hit any kind of mainstream. See, these are the things that also can happen at centralized exchanges with your crypto, but it can't happen if you hold your own keys. So these days we have a younger demographic of investors and money users that have no problem using digital wallets, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, etc. And also don't have any problem holding cryptocurrencies. So it's easier for the younger generation, the Generation Zs or whatnot, to say, actually I did a story about it already. I think the first one of the first videos I did on this channel was showing you how much depositor money has been liquidated from commercial banks, meaning people are taking their money out of banks. Well, where are they going to put that money? Okay, they're gonna use digital means and cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology. Like one of the reasons why even Michael Saylor said that he decided to go Bitcoin on his balance sheets is because he said cash is trash. This is what a lot of billionaires say. They want to keep their money in assets. And Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, decentralized finance is a way where people can hold their money, their assets themselves, and get way bigger, larger returns than you could at a bank. This is why you don't see this on the mainstream. If this became too popular, if this became the trend too much, where the average person, the 98% of people who aren't involved in cryptocurrencies, realize that the banks that they hold their money in doesn't even keep up with inflation anymore, and they could be holding it, staking different coins at 8%, 10% more. They could be, involved in different decentralized financial protocols that would hedge against inflation a lot better than keeping it in the bank. People would start seeing that they don't really need banks. And this is why I'm going to show you this story right here. Coinbase faces SEC charges amid calls for crypto regulation. We've seen how that happened with Ripple, how that went down with Ripple. Took them years, though. Took them years, and it took them fighting. It took them a lot of money to beat that case. But the SEC is not done, because they have to keep they have to keep the pressure on these crypto companies in order to preserve the traditional financial system until, there'll be a point where you'll see more embracement from these larger markets like the United States, from the financial regulators and traditional finance and the governments and whatnot. You'll see them embrace it more and even push it more. Like I've said before, once they have their own products and services in ways that they feel like they can make money off the market without it being such a conflict of interest to the native currency, which is the US dollar. Until then, they got to keep the pressure on. So, this is them. They're suing Coinbase, they're suing Kraken, they're suing a lot of different crypto exchanges and crypto companies. And one of the reasons why I've spotted it was indicated, or clearly stated, I should say, well, as you can see right here, the SEC alleges that the tokens such as Solana, Cardano, and some others listed on Coinbase qualify as securities. Now, what's interesting about those three right there is they're all coins that you can stake. And that is actually what the SEC said they had a problem with Coinbase, is the staking, some of the staking options. They don't think that you should be able to stake coins. Why? Because you can stake Solana at like 7%, Cardano at like 5%, Cosmos at 9%. If you know how to stake it yourself, you can get actually 22%. But if you're going to use, Coinbase's services, of course, they got to get paid too. But the point is, people can stake coins. So here's how it works. You stake in your Cosmos, for instance, which you can stake on Coinbase, and they're paying you in Cosmos. So let's say you have 100 Cosmos staking at just 9%, which I think Coinbase is doing. That means at the end of the year, you'll have 109 Cosmos. So you just increased the amount of Cosmos you have, right? So now, what if Cosmos goes up 10% during that year? So not only are you making money from the value of Cosmos increasing, but you have more Cosmos. So like when you're staking Cosmos, like I first started staking it when it was 86 cents, and last bull run, it ran all the way up to $40 per. So not only did a tremendous flippage occur, which increased the value of the Cosmos, but also I was getting 20+% on top of that in additional Cosmos. So you can't do that with your bank. Your bank's going to pay you like 0.25%. You're going to turn $1,000 into $1,025. But inflation last year was 8% recorded. So that means you really lost $80 of purchasing power, even though you may have increased your $1,000 by 25 cents. So you're still losing money. You're losing purchasing power. Now you can't buy as much this year with $1,000 as you could have last year, because cost of living, that rent's going up, mortgage going up, whatever. Food's going up, gas is going up, bills are going up. So this is why they have a problem with, this is why you don't see it on the mainstream. And this is why you see legitimate companies being targeted by the SEC, because it threatens the traditional financial system. And you got to think about it. Like, you're not going to see it on the mainstream when the mainstream is sponsored mostly by large corporations and banks and traditional financial institutions. They're not going to tell you, hey, what you could do with crypto until they have crypto to offer you. Which is why you're seeing all these institutions buy up so much crypto. They're going to sell it back. This is, the principle of an ETF. These companies are buying up all this Bitcoin, because once they get an ETF approved, they're going to offer it to you. By that time, the price is going to be much higher. And of course, even if you make money off it, they're not doing it for free. So you letting them custody the Bitcoin for you, they're going to have to charge you for that in order to make money. And you're only going to have limited access during whatever business hours, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So, decentralized finance is definitely a threat to traditional financial systems that are unwilling or hesitant or unable to adapt. This is why you'll see, like, some countries, they're like, yeah, we need that Bitcoin. El Salvador, we're under sanctions, so we really can't do global business like that. That's hindering us. 25% of our GDP is remittance, and those fees are money that's being taken out of our economy potentially. Inflation is 40%. We're losing, so it's not a real risk for them to hold Bitcoin, accept Bitcoin. It's not. And there's a lot of other countries that are like that. Most of the world. There are some places in the world right now where Bitcoin is at an all-time high because their money is so inflationary that Bitcoin would never costed as much of their currency to acquire than it does now. So, according to Armstrong, the United Kingdom is far more friendly as a clearer regulations than the United States. And this can also be attributed to crypto regulations being led by a single watchdog, the Financial Conduct Authority, Prime Minister. So in other words, there's too much politics in the U.S. There's too many different agencies, the CFTC, the SEC, too many different people have an interest in trying to regulate crypto. And then you have different states with different rules. So it's like, if there was just one clear boom, it could be a lot easier. And because of this unclarity and because of this SEC attacking all these crypto companies, it also means that there's a lot of products and services that companies and that would want to offer that they're probably hesitant to. So with the SEC and the Ripple situation, okay, so we kind of got precedent set on what's a security. We know XRP is not a security, and it's probably going to go that much better for other cryptos, but it doesn't mean they're not going to fight. It doesn't mean they're not going to continue to try to keep the market down, try to see what they can do to make enough companies bow down and maybe pay a large fee or whatever the case may be. It's like they really want to hinder the adoption of crypto because they don't have an answer for it. Because a lot of banks become, like people are willing to go digital. They don't need the brick and mortar banks. They're not happy with the rewards that banks are paying. They don't feel secure as they once did about the banking system. Too much information is out now. Too much of a history of certain things now. So of course, it is what it is. That's why you don't see on the mainstream. That's why Blockchain Crypto Gang YouTube channel exists. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I know this is a new channel. I may be doing another live later on, getting into the gold standard partners and what's been going on with them. And of course, they're failing cryptocurrency. Let's just look at this real quick. This coin, like somebody tell G999 we're in a bull run right now. We're in a bull cycle. Somebody tell them. Because they're still at all-time lows. And I have people still on my channel, on this very channel, telling me that give it a chance, it's going to do it. Look, I have some information I'm going to show you. It's pretty much kind of been out now. And, look, we're in a bull cycle. This coin is down. Still less than it was, even before the bull cycle. Like, no one has bought this coin for less than this. So pretty much any coin in this bull cycle will make money unless it's affiliated with the multi-level marketing Ponzi scheme. Anyway, I'll just end it like that. Thanks for your time, you guys. Peace.